Today we're going to try the red fox squirrel hair nymph. Very similar to the soft hackle hare's ear. In this particular case we're going to use squirrel hair, not tail, not the red fox squirrel tail, but the red fox squirrel hair for the tail. We're going to use Flashabou for the rib rather than wire, and we're going to add a bead head. Whitlock has a video, his own video, on tying several variations of the red fox squirrel hair nymph on different hook styles, different configurations, and all the history behind it. I urge you to pick up a copy if you're interested in this particular pattern. To tie this fly, you'll need Dave's Flex Cement, a 2x long hook is the standard, either a Tiemco 5262 or Daiichi 1710 or any good quality 2x long hook. You'll need a package of appropriately sized beads. In the case of the red fox squirrel hair nymph, I prefer copper beads. If the bead head isn't quite enough weight for you, you'll need some lead or non-lead equivalent. With the bead head, I prefer a non-lead equivalent. You'll require a red fox squirrel skin. You'll also need some Whitlock SLF dubbing in the abdomen color and in the thorax color. I know it's hard to read on this card because it's a little worn over time, but the number is 6967 in the Flashabou. And finally, you'll need an Indian hen saddle hackle. Start tying. Insert your hook, again with the barb already mashed down, and the bead already threaded onto the hook. Now, how many turns of lead or non-lead you want is going to be a personal preference. I try and get about 10 to 13 depending on the size of the hook. But the whole idea is that once you have it on there, what you're going to do is end up sliding it into the bead, and it'll become a bit of a gauge for you in terms of where to stop the abdomen and start the thorax. One of the things I do, and you can use Zap-A-Gap for this as well, is I put a little bit of glue up front, in front of the eye, and a little bit of glue on the thread, on the lead, before I put the thread on. And that'll give the lead and the bead a chance to bond together. Just makes it a little bit more durable. And what you want to do is secure that down when you dress your hook with the thread, bringing it all the way back to the barb of the hook. What you want to do is you want to take the skin and you want to take this bunch of hair off the back, so that you've got a relatively small bunch one that's not too thin, one that's not too thick, and that's going to be up to your sense of aesthetic. That you can play with in terms of evening out, but don't try and make it too even. You can thin it down a little bit by just doing that. That'll make it easier to put on the hook. And length is one of those little open questions that's kind of up to your sense of aesthetic. Be half the length of the hook shank would probably be about the maximum you want to do. And all I do is tie down the butt end so that more or less finishes somewhere in that area. Take your Flashabou, tie it in, and I prefer to leave a little bit longer length tied down to the hook shank, which makes it a little tough for it to be pulled out. We have a couple of options in terms of how we attach the body, the abdomen and the thorax. I think what I'll do is I'll make a separate standalone video in terms of using or creating a dubbing loop, and for now we'll just stick with the standard method of putting the dubbing on the thread. Remember, it's easier to put on than take off, so don't overdo it. Once or twice in front, go once behind the ribbing material, come back in front, and again create, just like on the soft hackle hare's ear, a bit of a tapered body. Again, think carrot shape, thin in the back, thicker in the front. Now here is where you start running into a question mark as to how far forward do you want. What you need to remember is that you're going to put a little thorax dubbing behind the hackle. You're going to put the hackle and you're going to put a little bit in front. So don't come too far. Make sure you leave yourself just a little bit of room, but not too much, otherwise things are going to begin to look a little awkward. And when you think you're there, if you need to pull off the dubbing that you got, that's fine. Just do it. And move your Flashabou forward and more or less evenly spaced wraps. Now on this, if you put 3 turns of thread, then bring the Flashabou back and wrap over the top of it again, then come back and put 1 more in there. That Flashabou is not going to pull out from this end. So basically what you now have is a Flashabou rib that's tied down underneath and in front that will not pull out. It will break long before it pulls out. Now, as I said, you're going to take a little bit of the thorax dubbing and you're going to put a little bit of a collar on there that's just ever so slightly thicker than the abdomen you just left. On the Indian hen hackle, take and clip off from the center section a little tag, just like you did on the soft hackle hare's ear. grab that tag and tie it down with your thread. That will happen to you. Just unwrap, grab it again, and tie it down. And now you'll notice that it broke. In other words, do not play with this that much. There's just not that much strength, but it's going to happen. So what you do is, once again, you just create yourself a little tag, grab hold, and tie it in. One, two wraps, that's all you need, and in fact in many ways it's more than you need. But I have scissors. I can fix that if it's just flat out too much, too heavy. Reach in there, clip the stem. Reach up again, these fingers, watch the hook point. And just pull all those barbs back. Tie in over the top of them to secure them so that they're in a rearward. Position. How long this hackle should be is again up to your sense of aesthetic and the look you're trying to achieve. Just like the soft hackle hairs here, I like them to come back and join with the tail. Now put a little flex cement in the remaining gap. And add more of the thorax colored dubbing. Make it the head a little bulky, and you want it a little bulky for a reason I'll show you in a minute. You are more or less done. Take your whip finisher, and this is one of the advantages to bead heads, is that it doesn't have to be pretty so much as it has to just get there. You'll notice that the tie off isn't really showing. It's slipping in and hiding under the bead and under the dubbing, and it's going to hide even more in a second, because what you want to do now is take some form of dubbing brush. In his video, Dave Whitlock shows just a piece of Velcro on an end of a dowel, and what you want to do is reach in and kind of rough up the head, the thorax, the abdomen. You want to try and get the dubbing to blend a little bit with the hen hackle, and don't be afraid to be a little rough with it. You want that to stick out. And there you have the red fox squirrel hair nymph.